Hello, everybody. My name is Joseph Baca, and today I'll be talking to you, explaining a lecture from the History of Western Music book that we're using in MUS302. I'll be talking to you today about Chapter 26, which is, of course, Romanticism in classical forms, featuring orchestral, chamber, and choral music. This is a really interesting chapter. That leads a lot from Romanticism. It's an excellent time reading it. I definitely recommend reading it because it talks a lot about things that started in the Romantic era that continue today throughout the world of music, and it's a really cool experience. Today we're going to talk about the 19th century orchestra. Now, this is a big deal because these orchestras are still alive today, most of them, what the great ones are, and it's a really interesting experience to see that these orchestras, they're so old and they're still thriving and growing, and they're bigger and better and louder and faster and slower and prettier and more passionate, and everything we want out of the Romantic era and out of the modern world too, because people show less passion here anyway. One big thing about these orchestras is they were open to the public. You know, some of them you had to pay to get in, some of them you could stand in the back. Oftentimes now they throw free concerts every once in a while, 4th of July, you know, and it really show themselves in a cool way. And it's a really interesting experience to go and watch these orchestras. For example, some of these orchestras include the Vienna Orchestra, the New York Philharmonic, the London Orchestra, Chicago. You know, it's an awesome experience. I've this past summer when we went to Vienna with the choir program, we performed the Mozart Requiem with it wasn't the official Vienna Philharmonic Orchestra, but it was a lot of members from it, and it was really cool to meet them. I couldn't talk to them because they all spoke German, and the only thing I knew how to say was Stille Wasser, and that's about it. But I've seen CSO a couple times, and you know, just to see these professional performers in their natural space is one of the most amazing things you can ever do. So the size of orchestras grew from about 40 to 90 members, and with the change in music direction, a lot of it came from bigger pieces from composers, a lot more instrument changes, which was really cool. You know, they added that valve trumpet that we talked about in the last chapter, and the tuba and the saxophone and the flute. Not so much the saxophone, but it's a really cool thing that things are getting bigger and better. So a lot of things happened with the effects on the audience. Now, the audience actually learned how to keep quiet during a performance, and this was a very big deal because it set the standard for how a concert should be nowadays, which is quiet and you know, peaceful and intense. And I don't know, when I watch a concert and I'm in complete silence, I feel like the tension through the air. This is positive tension from me to the performer, and there's nothing but electricity between us as the music comes to me. And it's a really cool experience for the audience, and more importantly the performer, because the performer performs their best in complete silence, because there's focus on the instrument, there's silence in the air, there's electricity through their hands, through their voice, and it allows them to become a little bit more passionate about what they're playing. With this new Romanticism idea in classical forms comes the idée fixe. Now, the idée fixe is a melody that Berlioz used to represent the image of the hero's beloved transforming to fit the mood of the story. Now, this was a really cool concept because it allowed, you know, the piece not to be so subtle about the character or about the performer. It's really meant to depict the mood of what's happening in the story, and through the composer of Berlioz. Now, speaking of Berlioz, he was born in 1803 and he died in 1869. He was a composer who composed 3 operas, 4 symphonies, including Symphonie Fantastique, and over 30 choral works. That's a lot of choir, that's a lot of singing, and it's an awesome experience to study Berlioz. And so the last thing to talk about from this chapter would be just a little bit that I thought was cool, and it touched a little bit on our modern style of thinking, and that was a cappella. So a cappella is basically what it means is it's an unaccompanied piece. You know, oftentimes nowadays it's used a lot in singing. There's a lot of movies like Pitch Perfect that use a cappella styles in nature. It's a really cool experience to and it's a very nervous experience on my personal side to think about, because you know you're up there by yourself and you're creating a music off of your head, and it's an amazing opportunity to showcase what you have and the knowledge that you have while performing. Now, just to recap, we went over chapter 26, Romanticism in Classical Forms, featuring orchestral, chamber, and choral music. We went over the 19th century orchestra. We went over the size and the effects on the audience, featuring how to let them know to be quiet, and what it does to the performer. We went over Idée Fixée. We went over Hector Berlioz and the Symphonie Fantastique and his choir works. And we went over a cappella. And thank you.